We have breaking news on the resignation of General Petraeus, and there's no one I'd rather be speaking to right now than Congressman Peter King, the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, and he's a member of the House Intelligence Committee, who was to hear from General Petraeus in testimony on the Benghazi situation next week. Congressman King, my friend, welcome, sir.
Good for you, Steve. How you doing down there?
I'm doing okay, and it's not that far. It's your territory, so
absolutely.
You know, and I do want to before we leave, I do want to touch on some of the people on Long Island who are still victims of this storm in Staten Island and New Jersey. But I do want to talk about this right now. Sure. We have a report from Ronald Kessler at writing for Newsmax.com that says that this announcement, this resignation, was made earlier than we've been told, and it was held until after the election. But also, we have a report from ABC News, and ABC News says that sources familiar with the resignation say Petraeus was having the affair. They say that Director of National Intelligence James Clapper was made aware of the situation on Tuesday evening at about 5 o'clock by the FBI. But here's what gets me. After having several conversations with Petraeus that evening and the following day, which would be Wednesday, Clapper advised Petraeus that the best thing to do would be for him to resign, which flies in the face of what we've been hearing, that Petraeus decided that because he had an affair, he felt that it was incumbent upon him to resign. Tell me what you think of these revelations.
Again, if they're true, it just adds more confusion to the story. I just don't believe the original story that came out, no matter how you look at it. Doesn't make sense. The fact that you had a 4 or 5 month investigation of the director of the CIA by the FBI, if that were the case, they would have had to get a federal court order to do that. If they did, that meant this was a serious matter, and in that case, the FBI director had an absolute obligation to go directly to the President of the United States and tell him that his CIA director was involved one way or the other in a serious investigation which warranted a federal court order. So there's no way around this. This is either the President knew about it early on or the director of the FBI, for whatever reason, didn't tell him about it, and that's really hard to believe. Somebody had to know about it in the White House. Otherwise, how could you be conducting an investigation like this of the highest-ranking intelligence officer in the country and not make the president aware of it? I mean, if this is a security risk which forces somebody to leave their job, well, then it's serious enough. I mean, nothing happened in the last several days was any different from what they knew in the last 4 or 5 months. Then it should have been brought to the president's attention immediately.
All right, well, let me ask you this. Comment specifically on the Clapper thing. If ABC News is reporting that Clapper asked and said the best thing for you to do is resign, doesn't that just feed into the mindset and the allegations being made by many and the suspicions being held by many, including the soundbite you heard leading into this interview, this program by Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters on Fox News? Doesn't it just reinforce that there's some hanky-panky and shenanigans going on here to prevent General Petraeus from testifying about what he knows on Benghazi next week?
Yeah, except that is not going to prevent him. I mean, we will still, as far as I'm concerned, the Intelligence Committee has to hear from General Petraeus. Whether or not he's head of the CIA is almost irrelevant to him testifying. He's the only one who would have the facts that we're looking for. So he's going to have to testify one way or the other. So if that's their intention, they failed on it.
Well, why is the White House saying he won't testify then?
They can't say it. First of all, if he's not going to be in. It's possible that he will get a 1-week extension, a 2-week extension, but the fact is the White House cannot say, especially if he's no longer director of the CIA, they can't prevent him from testifying before Congress. I mean, first of all, if they tried to do it anyway when he was an employee, they could have a whole issue of constitutional crisis going on. But once he leaves the CIA, they certainly can't keep him from testifying.
All right, we're talking to Congressman Peter King. I'm Steve Malzberg on WMAL.
I'm not saying they wouldn't try, but I mean, that's not going to stand up.
All right, let me ask you this, Congressman, because this struck me. You and I became friendly back during the impeachment of Bill Clinton, and we had our differences during the impeachment of Bill Clinton. So let me ask you this. Why is it so? I understand the blackmail issue. You can't have a CIA director having an affair because he could be blackmailed, etc. But when the President of the United States had an affair with an intern, all I heard from the left and the media, and quite honestly, with all, and I don't mean this in any negative way, from some on the right, including yourself, was that it doesn't rise to a high crime and misdemeanor, and don't impeach him, and basically it's a personal situation. So why is it different? Why is it all of a sudden being treated differently in the eyes of almost everyone universally when it's the CIA director, when in fact there's no one more powerful or important than a president?
Yeah, we could have that debate again. I would just say that with the CIA, that we've never imposed the litmus test on the president that he can't have an affair. We know that Franklin Roosevelt had them. We know that John Kennedy had them. We know that probably Thomas Jefferson had them, or maybe before he was president. There's all these stories. But again, I think that to me the main issue right now, Steve, is what happened. Why was this investigation launched in the first place? If it was that,
well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. The FBI didn't investigate Bill Clinton's.
There's more. There has to be more here. I mean, there's more here. This story does not add up. There's just something missing in the entire story and the entire narrative, and none of it's good. I mean, I don't see any good explanation coming out of this. There's no way you can defend what the White House is saying, what the administration is saying. It just doesn't make sense, and that's the point I'm making. And for instance, my understanding is that the FBI, when they're conducting an investigation of the CIA director or anyone prominent in the CIA, they're supposed to notify the House Intelligence Committee. No one was notified. Neither the chairman, the ranking member, any of the members were notified. How could this be go? For 6 months, they were doing 5 months, they're doing this investigation, and they don't notify the House Intelligence Committee. Yet it's important enough. I mean, think of the consequences of monitoring the emails of the CIA director by the FBI, almost a competitive agency in a way, and not telling the president about it, not telling the Congress about it. And then suddenly, on Election Day, the night of the election, or the day after the election, or 2 days after the election, whichever time frame we want to use, it becomes so important that it's disclosed and Petraeus is out the door. It just, now there's a lot of issues here. Was General Petraeus aware of the investigation? Was he aware of it back on September 14th when he gave Congress the version of the Benghazi attack, which has been disproven since then? Was the White House angry at him when he went back at the White House several weeks ago and said that the CIA was not the one responsible for not sending the reinforcements to Benghazi? As Ralph Peters said, is the fact that General Petraeus basically broke with the White House version of what happened? Is that, that somebody in the White House then dropped the story on him? These are all the things that are really very, very pertinent.
No, without a doubt. Okay, so you say, Congressman King, that you will hear from David Petraeus, and we should point out, as you just alluded to, that back when he had testified originally, a few weeks ago, there were Congress people calling for his resignation then because they say he wasn't being truthful. As you pointed out, what he said happened. He attributed it to the video, and that's been disproven. So there was unhappiness on the part of congressional members with that testimony. But you're saying that you will hear from him. He will be subpoenaed or called, or if necessary, I guess, subpoenaed, and that this resignation will not change that. Is that what you're saying? That's
what I'm saying. That's going to be what I am going to certainly urge. I mean, that is my strong belief that we cannot allow him not to testify. He has to testify. It's as simple as that.
And one more time. If James Clapper said to Petraeus, you should resign, and that turns out to be why he resigned, just tell me how it changes the scenario and the whole situation in your mind.
Well, it changes the scenario that, first of all, Clapper would have had to tell the president. Clapper would not be doing that on his own. He had to be doing that at the directive of somebody in the White House. And it means the White House was involved and they wanted him out. It also means that if they want him to resign because they're afraid of the upcoming hearing.
Right. All right.